Hi, and welcome to another low-tech video. This week I'm making a short video about baking bread. We're making sourdough two ways, once with potatoes and once with multigrain. So I boiled my potatoes until they were soft that you could push through them with a fork. Drained them out, and I put them in the refrigerator to cool. I then started on my multigrain bread, which consists of 14 ounces of white, 8 ounces of wheat, 8 ounces of oats, a tablespoon of salt, 8 ounces of water, and 4 ounces of sourdough starter, and then I add a little water until it all comes together. The reason I'm weighing it is because flour compacts when you use a measuring cup, and so by weighing it you get a more accurate amount of flour in every time. Unfortunately, you can't weigh the water because your flour will contain a different amount of moisture depending on the relative humidity, so each time you make it, you have to add enough water that it's sticky enough to bind together and just barely sticks to your fingers when you try and pull them away. If you add more water, you get a wetter dough, and you can make bread like that. It's just really hard to knead, and then you might want to start looking into no-knead recipes. So once I mix it all together and I get it to form a ball, I knead it for about 10 minutes. My method of kneading is flipping the long end up and pushing down on it, and this folds it over on itself over and over again. This builds up the gluten, which makes dough rise and stick together. This is a clouche, or a fabric, a piece of linen that I put a lot of flour on. It's kind of like non-stick baking material. And after the bread is risen, the multigrain has risen for about 3 or 4 hours, I lay it out on a well-floured surface and stretch it out into thirds and then into thirds again to make a ball, and pop that into the clouche inside of a bowl to rise again. At this point I can start making the potato bread, and I do that by putting in 12 ounces of potatoes and mashing them, although I probably should have riced them. You can leave the skin in there, but you might need to run it through a ricer to make sure it gets fully broken up into small pieces. I then add 16 ounces of flour, a tablespoon of salt, and 8 ounces of sour. I add 8 ounces to this one because I want to make it rise a little quicker. About 8 ounces of sour is more or less equivalent to about a tablespoon of granular yeast, or a packet of yeast. Here I'm rehydrating my sourdough starter. I'll do another video on that in the future, talking all about how you make sourdough starter and how you keep it alive and happy, as well as how to use it. Then I added about 8 ounces of water, but again you have to do this by feel. And I mixed it together until it formed a ball, and then kneaded it on the countertop again, just like the previous loaf of bread. The potato bread doesn't stick together quite as well as the multigrain, but it does form a really fluffy, light loaf when it's done. It's one of my favorite breads, actually. It's especially good with this tangy sourdough taste added in. I pull apart a little bit of the flour to make a window to see if the gluten has produced enough strands to form the bread structure that we need. So here's a close-up of me kneading. And I'm checking that window, and there we go. We have nice gluten strands. Now this will get covered with a bowl, and it will sit and rise for 2 to 3 hours. It depends on the temperature and how active your sourdough starter is. And here I come back a couple of times to check it. Not ready. Oh, not ready either, so I'll come back again later. This one's ready for its first kneading. This is the potato bread, so I knead it one more time. And it's pretty sticky, so I get it ready for its second rise. So now I'll let it rise again. Here I'm mixing up an egg wash. Usually you just use egg white, because that gives you more of a golden color. With egg wash, you run the likelihood of getting a much browner color, but I don't like wasting the egg yolk, and I didn't want to make an egg yolk omelet or anything, so I just used the whole egg, and that's perfectly fine. I've preheated this pan and dumped the sourdough multigrain into it. And now I'm doing a little extra special carving on top of 2 horizontal slashes, 2 vertical slashes. I put a lid on it and pop it in the oven. It's at 425 for about 30 minutes, then I take the lid off for another 5 to 10 minutes to brown on top. I clean out the cloche and roll it up. As long as it's dry, you can put it away. You don't need to wash it. And now the potato bread is ready to be formed into a loaf and put into a greased pan. So I get folded in half and then in quarters and rolled out. I seal the seams and I put it together. I'll do a detailed video on rolling out bread in a coming video too. And now I pull out the sourdough multigrain and I check the temperature. The internal temperature has to hit 195 until it's done. That's the most surefire way to make sure your bread's done, so 195 degrees. It wasn't ready, so I had to pop it back in, but then it was ready pretty shortly thereafter. And now I egg washed and covered the potato bread and cooked it at 475 for about 35 minutes. Thanks for checking out this video. You can find recipes for this bread and other things on our website, lowtechinstitute.org. Thanks for watching.